Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and well, David, I'm your son. Arnor.
Ted, I am your father.
I knew it. Only the goofy shenanigans come through on Card Talk.
Yeah, I
got it from somewhere.
It's the wrong property here. I guess this is not a Star Wars thing. This is a...
What is it? What is it, Dave?
It's a Lord of the Rings podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. That's what it is. From Lord of the Rings, the card game.
I think I took a wrong turn. I think I'm meant to be an Arno.
Arnorchu? I'm going to keep working on that one. I'm going to workshop that one, but it's going to stick around, so be prepared for me to say it a lot because we have a fantastic episode.
We do. But before we get into the episode, let's talk a little bit about how people can get a hold of us or follow along. So for anybody who wants to know, we have the blog. We'll put all the information right over here. And so we have, the blog at cardtalk2018.com. Matt over at the blog writes an article every week that follows along with the pod. And so if you don't like to listen to us or you find Ted terribly annoying, then you can just go over to the pod and read what Matt writes, and that'll be just as good or maybe even more informative than anything that Ted has to say. And then there's Second Breakfast. Micah goes and plays every other week or so. He plays some live Lord of the Rings over on our YouTube channel. We enjoy that. That's a lot of fun. And then we have email. You can email us cardtalk2018@gmail.com. Or lastly, if you want to support what we do and if you want to help us keep the lights on here at the podcast, feel free to join us on Patreon, patreon.com/cardtalk2018. Every little bit helps. So that's it. And Grant, what card are we talking about today?
Well, as the past few episodes have dictated, we are still in the core set. We are doing the 3-cost leadership ally, Son of Arnor, with 0 willpower, 2 attack, 0 defense, 2 hit points, the trait Dunedain, and with the response, after Son of Arnor enters play, choose an enemy card in the staging area or currently engaged with another player and engage that enemy. And with the flavor text and the North Realm being made in Arnor and the Southern Realm in Gondor above the mouths of the Anduin, the Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay, so Grant, what's your what do you think of this Son of Arnor?
The Son of Arnor, he's expensive for what he gets. There are certain niche case scenarios where his ability could come in handy. Does he make it into any of my decks? Not a whole lot. Could it be useful in, like I say, in certain situations? But for me, I'm generally not playing him.
Okay. Ted?
Yeah. Grant brought up some good points. It's the engagement effect. I'd say it's something you don't want to underestimate because it can be useful to pull out high threat enemies or enemies at a different time during the game, right? Because you're typically going to play this guy during the planning phase. So if you left an enemy there last round that you couldn't deal with, when you pull it down, you'll no longer you're taking that threat out of the staging area. So there's some value there. And he's also got 2 attack and he's got 2 hit points. So he's sturdy in that regard. And
Sturdy.
yeah,
Sturdy. Okay.
and I'd love it if he had 3. I think that would improve upon him quite a bit. But you can also take enemies away from other players too, and that can again be strong, but also too depending on the timing of it. His effect, which also is neat, is it's a response after he enters play. So you can even, if you play sneak attack, you could trigger his effect multiple times. I'd say that this effect is not as, if you compare it to the main effect that we see in this game, that's similar, which is the hero version of Tactics Aragorn. It doesn't compare, but it does supplement that ability. It's that ability without playing that hero. And also, too, you can reduce this cost. If you're playing a Dunedain deck, he actually
is he the custodian of Son of Arnor?
Yeah.
Son of Arnor custodian.
Yeah. I would say so, because when you engage an enemy too, you might be triggering a multitude of effects that you have in play. So for example, if you're playing Halbarad. Halbarad is a leadership hero. He's Dunedain. His ability is when you're engaged with an enemy, he doesn't exhaust quest. So now if you killed your enemies within the last turn, you're going to pull down that enemy. And that during the planning phase, when you play this guy, and then Halbarad will then quest for free. So you can trigger lots of others' abilities and effects with these.
Yeah, and those are great
perfectly
things.
Valid reasons.
Those are perfectly valid reasons, and I think that the Son of Arnor costs a little much, for the stats that you get and that sort of stuff. But I do want to highlight one thing that Ted you talked about, but I want to make sure I put a good point on it, is that engaging enemies not during the engagement phase can have a lot of benefit. So if you sneak attack this guy in and you have to engage an enemy, and all of a sudden there's like a forced effect because of an engagement, and it's during the planning phase as opposed to, like, you can deal sometimes a lot better with that thing,
that response or forced effect.
Right, that forced effect, when you're in the planning phase, because you have much more flexibility there, and other people also have more flexibility. You can engage something that, let's say you're playing multiplayer and everybody has a specific role, and you're the combat person, and the person is engaged with a hill troll across from you, and they're the willpower, the questing people. Like, you can steal those things that are engaged with them. So, like, there is some value there. That we even have a core combo where you can engage the hill troll out of phase and then play a forest snare on the hill troll, and then you don't ever have to take a swing from the hill troll. Most of the times people are like, well, you just have to take the one swing first, and then you can do all sorts of stuff with the but if you take Son of Arnor, play Son of Arnor, you can pull the hill troll down toward you, and then and engage it, and then you can and then you don't have to take a swing. Put the force snare on it, and then you don't have to take a swing. So
assuming you got a total of 6 resources in turn one.
Absolutely, it's an expensive, it's a 2-card expensive combo. But you can also, if you're playing multiplayer, you can also rely on somebody else having the force snare, which helps a lot. So unless the force snare is restricted to put on an enemy engaged with you, but I don't think
it's not
true, because I always play
an enemy engaged.
Okay,
I believe.
So I think, I don't know. I think that this card is good. It's not great. it's good. It can help trigger some of those Dunedain effects where you want to engage enemies and you bring those enemies down towards you. But I don't know. I like this. But I don't know of any specific case where I'm going to play this card specifically to engage something. And I think there's a lot more, there's a lot better options for if you want to attack on the table somewhere, 2 hit points somewhere. So so I think that the reason to play Son of Arnor is because of the response, and then I don't know. I'm sure that there's people a lot smarter than me that have different things to do, but I think that the power of this card is to engage things outside of the engagement phase. I'll leave it there. Boys, clean it up for me.
Yeah, that's definitely the strength. I think this is one of those early design cards, too, that sort of the designers looked at what was made in the core set, and then when the Dunedain archetype was developed, this card, I think, influenced that. They're like, oh, there's this initial card of engaging enemies. And so I think the Dunedain archetype followed that. And this guy fits right into that deck archetype. And I think that's where he's strongest. Because, like I said, he's going to trigger lots of other effects when you do that. You can reduce his cost with some of those Dunedain cards. What is it? I think it's Heir of Vandal. Valendil? I'm really
Valendil.
close.
Yep.
Valendil. Thank you.
Yeah, you were always confusing it with the Heir of Mardil, which is that's a different one.
So that lets you. It's an attachment that lets you exhaust it, and you get to reduce the cost of a Dunedain ally by the number of enemies engaged with you. So if you're paying full price for this guy, you pull another enemy from the table. You can then trigger that attachment to then pay one less resource. It's like all these little things you can trigger that will pile up and sort of continue to make the deck work. On its own, it can still be a very useful effect, but I think it's strongest in that archetype.
I was just thinking about the sneak attack thing, right? Engaging outside of the engagement phase. If you have an enemy, right, that like a big, powerful enemy, but you don't want to engage it right away because it'll kill something, you can also sneak attack this thing in after enemies make their attacks and avoid that enemy attacking you, but then you can attack the thing back, right? Because enemy attacks always happen first, and there's going to be an action window in there where you can sneak attack Son of Arnor in and avoid the attack from the big nasty enemy so that you can just attack it back.
Yeah, that premise it works. And to do it consistently, the hero is better, Tactics Aragorn, but like I said, this supplements that, works in addition to it, or if you're just playing leadership, like I said, you'd be surprised.
Bill Fernie, bring Bill Fernie down to you too. Get rid of him.
Yeah, anything that like this ability gets around. If there's an effect that says, if an enemy has text on it that says cannot be optionally engaged, we should specify and clarify that this effect is not considered an optional engagement.
Right.
The optional engagement is during the encounter phase. It's a rule that's part of the game. You have this choice to option engage enemy. This is outside of that, and it doesn't take up that spot. It's not considered your optional engagement. It's just this additional effect that you're doing on the card.
Goblin Sniper. If you're thinking of core set things that are a pain in the neck, and again, all of these are what we would call, or I would call, I don't want to put words in Grant's or Ted's mouth, but I would call these like niche cases, because usually if you're playing the against the Goblin Sniper, you've already figured out a way to do it, like whether you're playing with Dunhere or Gandalf or whatever, but the Son of Arnor is another tool in the toolbox to be able to engage things. So what about the artwork?
Oddly enough, I like the artwork.
I do too. This is one of my favorite ones from the core set.
It's nicely done. I mean, it's not overstating things with the way like Grim Resolve was cluttered. This is quite clearly a lone Dunedain on horseback. And it's nicely done. It's not complicated.
Yeah. Ted?
Yeah, exactly what Grant said. Is it just, if you want pictures of stoic Dunedain riding through the mist of Arnor, like, this is your card. Stare at it while you play. Put them on the table.
Yeah, I just think that this is this is a better indication of the artwork to come from the core set, like as the game progressed through. I don't know. Should we ring this guy?
We shouldn't not ring this guy.
Okay. Well, for anybody who doesn't know or may have forgotten, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, or one of the best cards in the game, and 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made, or one of the worst cards in the game. So I think last episode we started with Ted. So Grant, we'll let you go first this time.
I can see his uses in very niche cases. Other than the fact that I like his artwork, the stats aren't all that great for his cost. I'm going to give him 6 rings.
Okay, and I will go next. Ted will save the best for last.
Per the usual. Makes sense.
Yep. Okay, so go ahead, since we're saving the best for last. No, I'm just kidding. I think Grant said it. I could see use cases, and I can see some shenanigans happening with this guy where you're pulling things down, and I think that there's some deliberate choices you can make with this, but I don't think that this card goes into, very many decks. I just don't think you're gonna do much with this card. You're not building your Son of Arnor deck to engage the.
No, I would say that you are. I would say that's exactly what this guy is. You're building an engagement enemy deck, and Son of Arnor is one of those effects.
Yeah, but I don't even think that you put Son of Arnor in that. Like, I think you can build that deck without Son of Arnor.
I mean, you can build.
Do you have it? Well, okay. I hear what you're saying, Ted, but let me finish my ring rating. Jerk. And then, so like, as Ted said, like, you could, there's a certain deck, the Dunedain deck, that wants to engage things all the time because you get bonuses and things like that. That is typically not a solo deck, but there are versions that can work solo that's a little bit different on it. But, so I just don't see the Son of Arnor fitting into a lot of things. That said, you could build a couple of shenanigan-y decks that do some things, and you say, okay, I'm going to get my Son of Arnor, I'm going to hold on to it, I'm going to wait for this particular case, I'm going to sneak attack the Son of Arnor in and do stuff, there's stuff. But again, I also don't think that it goes into a Dunedain deck. Like, let me rephrase. I think it does go into a Dunedain deck, but I don't think that the modern Dunedain deck build has to include Son of Arnor. It's not one of the required cards. Having said all of that, I'm going to give Son of Arnor a 8. Ted?
I'm gonna give him a 5 because that effect is.
It's okay, great. I'm going to talk over you. No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm your son. Aren't I right, or are you wrong? Nailed it. Yeah,
were you talking?
Say everything that I said. Yeah, toss it in, and it is. There are a couple of scenarios that have those tricksy enemies that David, and you named a few of them. You named like the Goblin Sniper from the core set. You named Bill Fernie from the Saga expansions, and there's more of those types of enemies than you think. Is there like one in every quest? Probably not, but there's quite a few. So I think it would come up, and you'd be really glad you had that effect. Plus, again, you get to trigger a bunch of other crazy effects. You can trigger like Hero Moblong, gain a resource. You can trigger Hero Sam Ganji, like all kinds of stuff. It's great. Play it. Play cards. Play cards because it's fun.
Yeah, and that's what we try to encourage here. Play the cards. Okay, everybody, we will join us again as we talk about more cards in the game. Have a great day.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.